Today I'm going to discuss and share 10 games that you can still find relatively cheap for the Nintendo 64. I love doing these types of videos. I've done several others in the past. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and I like to help fellow collectors add to their collections, especially on a budget. You know, there's many people out there, and I agree that prices have gone up, but there's still good deals. There's still cheap games to be found, especially if you go loose cart. I did a video on the Nintendo 64 a few years back sharing 10 good and cheap games, and in today's video I'm going to take additional 10 games and share with you. These games are far from perfect. They have a few flaws, but they hold a lot of value, and if you haven't checked these games out, I think you're in for a treat, as many of them offer lots of gameplay options, and many of them have multiplayer functions as well. So sit back, relax, here we go. First up is a game that probably several PC enthusiasts would avoid, but if you're a console gamer and haven't checked out Command & Conquer, the N64 version is not bad. It's the entire first game in 3D, and so there's the full campaign, both sides, as well as additional missions. Now, moving it around with the C-Stick is not perfect. It takes a little bit to get accustomed to, but there's a lot of value here. There's a lot of replayability and a lot of fun. There isn't a multiplayer option, and there is some limitations for what the N64 can do. And I do wish there was mouse support, but you know, you get aside that and you look at the cost of this game, it's cheap. You can find it, and if you do experience it, I think you're going to enjoy this. Give it a chance. One of Rare's overlooked games is Jet Force Gemini, offering single player and a tagged on multiplayer experience. This game is huge. The worlds are huge. It does offer traditional Rare gameplay experience. You have to tribals in each level, and the bosses are epic, many of them taking several minutes to take down. Very challenging game, but if you can get past these shortcomings, I think you're in for a treat. I know there's many out there that may have not experienced this game, relatively cheap, and if you don't have a Nintendo 64 and you have an Xbox One, you can check it out on Rare Replay, another way to check out this Rare classic. And I do think it's a solid game. Shortcomings and all, it gets a thumbs up for me. N64 had an abundance of racing games, and one of my favorites is Extreme G. Now, it does have some control issues, but if you can get past this imperfect racer, there's many modes, different vehicles that you can choose from in this futuristic racer. A lot of fun to be had, and I really have enjoyed this one. You know, this takes me back. One of the first racing games I actually checked out on the Nintendo 64. There is 1 to 4 multiplayer options, and I think that's going to add some value to this, especially playing with friends. And, you know, I like the track design, I like the soundtrack, and, you know, if you're into those futuristic racers, I think this is a solid pick and relatively cheap. You know, many of these games that I show on this list, well below 20 bucks, even cheaper than that if you shop around, and I think there's going to be many fans out there and people remember this one. Often a Nintendo overlooked gem is Pilotwings 64, an early release. You know, many people pursued and loved playing Mario 64, but this game offers its own unique experience, and if you give it a chance, you are in for a treat. The control in this game really makes it amazing. You're playing one of many various games and challenges, and you have to earn licenses, and there's a lot of depth to this game if you give it a chance. I really like the jetpack missions, as those tend to be ones I enjoy the most, but I really enjoyed playing this one, and it offers a very unique experience. I really wish Nintendo would make another Pilotwings, as this is one of my favorite original early Nintendo 64 games, and if you haven't checked it out, it's well worth going back and enjoying this experience. Well worth pulling out your Nintendo 64 for this gem. While I like the original better, Robotron 64 offers a unique updated experience, control options, a 1 or 2 player game, and there are a ton of levels, 200 hidden secrets, weapons, enemies, and there's just a lot of gameplay here, and well worth checking out if you haven't already, because you know, this to me is a great follow-up to the original. They tried to update it, and you know, there's a PlayStation version as well. I like the N64 version due to the control, as it's a nice setup on the original controller, and that's what I love about this game. It still has the intense gameplay of the original with updated graphics. Well worth checking out, and if you haven't played it already, I recommend going back and checking out this one. Another excellent racer is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. You may have your own opinions of the movie, but this is a fun game, taking several characters and adding new environments that weren't in the movie and making a wonderful, fast, intense racer. It's one of the fastest games, I think, racing wise for the Nintendo 64. Really enjoyed this one. I played this on PC, Dreamcast, but the N64 one is good. You know, there is an updated version you can get on the Switch, but you know, I still like going back to this one. You know, it's a little clunky looking, but if you're playing this on original Nintendo 64, you know, this has several options. I love that it has some multiplayer options, but the track design really is what keeps me coming back. There's branching paths and fairly challenging too. You can go so fast too. I love that you can upgrade your pod, and you can just really get intense feats, especially later on in the game. Well worth checking out. Next up is an overlooked puzzle game, and that's Tetrisphere. And this offers a very unique experience on the Nintendo 64. Lots of different modes. I do recommend the tutorial, as this plays a lot different than a traditional Tetris game. It's 3D kind of view and perspective, and lots of different modes. I really enjoyed that it changed it up. Now, I'm terrible at this game, but you know, I had several people recommend it. Hey, give it a shot. I do recommend playing several games that kind of get into your flow, as once you understand the gameplay mechanics, you'll enjoy this one a lot more, as I did. And one that, you know, I'm kind of been into puzzle games lately, and this is definitely one I'd like to go back and check out, as there is a lot here going on. It's not just a straight up puzzle game. There's a lot of strategies and mechanics that make this one fairly complicated, but I do recommend going back and giving this one a shot. The original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is very affordable. It's not as good as the second one, and there's some issues with this port, but put that aside, this is still an excellent game. If you haven't checked out this franchise, this ongoing long-standing franchise, go back to the original. You're not going to be disappointed with the original Tony Hawk. I felt that the character models were well done, and it has great gameplay. A little bit slower than the PlayStation version, I do believe, but once you get the controls down, I'm not that great at this game, but it's excellent. If you're a big skateboarding fan or want to experience a good example of the 90s, look no further than this game. Next up is an overlooked Turok game, and it's Turok Rage Wars, and it plays more like a Quake 3 arena style first-person shooter, and I really like this game. Now, it does have a bug in the original Black Cart release, which Acclaim later sneezed out a fix, which is very expensive, but the original release, which is real cheap, a bug in it in which the frag tag and the cooperative trials mode doesn't work right. And, you know, aside from that, tons of modes, tons of options here. Lots of fun to be had with friends, by yourself. You know, this is excellent. This is overlooked. This is an overlooked game and relatively cheap. Totally recommend it. So much fun here. I worked at a GameStop when this came out, and it was fairly popular during that time, that, you know, that late 90s release. And this kind of, you know, sneezed out, and a lot of people overlooked it or didn't know it was even on the console. But if you give this one a chance, definitely awesome. I'm a big fan of arcade sports games, and Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey on the Nintendo 64 is awesome. In fact, it's one of the cheapest games that I'm recommending today. You can get this one very cheap. Lots of different original players and teams, and you can choose your favorite, especially if you're a hockey fanatic. You're going to love this. It has 4-player multiplayer options, so you can play this with friends. It's got fluid animation, and all I can say is if you're a fan of these kind of early 3D sports games, especially arcade-style sports games, you are going to love it. Now, is this realistic hockey? No, it's not realistic hockey, but it's fast and furious and things that make an awesome video game. I found myself compelled to want to play more, as I am a big fan of these types of games. I haven't played this one a ton, but I want to thank everybody who recommended me to check this out, and now I'm going to recommend it to others because this is solid and affordable. So those are my 10 picks that you can find for cheap N64 games that are still fun to play. What did you think? Do you agree with this list? Did you check out my other video in which I share 10 additional games? So you may have comments like, why didn't you pick this game? You may want to check out that other video because I might have chosen the games that you are wanting to recommend there. Anyways, do you have other picks? What are some other good and cheap games that you recommend for the Nintendo 64? In the comments below, make sure to say them and explain why you think they're a good pick. And just want to thank everybody for coming to my channel. I offer a wide variety of content covering everything from Atari to Xbox. I do bad games, I do collection videos, I do ranking videos, and a whole lot more. Look forward to sharing many more videos with you. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock. You have a good day.